All right, so for my first pick of the Sunday six-pack, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings +7 at BetMGM against the
Mm-mm-mm.
Seattle Seahawks on Sunday night. Look, I've had a really good read on the Vikings this year. I came into the year skeptical. I then downgraded them a lot. I had a big play on the Colts and the under in week 2. But I also said, look, this team later in the year could be undervalued. And things have happened quicker than I expected. And I'll go through some of the reasons why. Number one, Justin Jefferson. So one of my biggest questions about the offense was the hole that they have to replace with Stephon Diggs, right? Well, and you just have Adam Thielen now. Who's going to be that number 2 receiver? You needed a rookie to emerge. Well, Justin Jefferson has emerged. I mean, he's arguably been one of the best receivers in the NFL this year. He leads the NFL in yards per route. He is tied with Stephon Diggs for most 20-plus yard receptions this year. He's turned into a legitimate threat at wide receiver to help out Adam Thielen. The offensive line has also played really well from a run blocking perspective, which you would anticipate some improvement there in Kubiak's second year of his zone blocking scheme. Drew Samia, their guard, has been the single, according to Pro Football Focus, been the single worst player to take an offensive snap this year. He's been bad, and they have an injury at guard. But their tackles, Bradbury is playing a lot better at center, and their run blocking is really improved. And then obviously you have Dalvin Cook, who leads the NFL in rushing, he leads the NFL in broken tackles. So this offense, with Jefferson now, with the offensive line improvements, is a upside top 10 unit. And they're going against the Seahawks defense that's atrocious, that is banged up. They have a bye next week, so you're probably going to see them sit. They're going to sit Adams to get an extra week of rest. But the Vikings, the other thing that really flipped the Vikings for me was over the first 3 weeks, you have Dalvin Cook and this good run blocking offensive line. You have Kirk Cousins, who's really efficient in play action. Over the first 3 weeks, they ran play action 20% of their plays. Last week against Houston, they went, and they were throwing on first downs. They went, on the first 3 drives, they went run on first down, run on first down, run on first down. The rest of the game, they started throwing on first down, and they used play action over 50% of the time. And this isn't just a fluke. This isn't just, they randomly did this. Zimmer went up to him. This is a quote from an article in the Tribune. And Zimmer said, I told Cougs during the game, I said, go ahead and start being aggressive. Don't worry about throwing the football too much. They were trying to load up on us to stop the run. We can't be afraid to throw the ball. That is an awesome sign for the Vikings offense. Not this, we need to run, Zimmer philosophy. The play action pass, which is where Cousins is most efficient. It can hide some of your pass blocking issues. Now, you don't have to really worry about that against the Seahawks, who have 0 edge rush, and they get no pressure, bottom 5 in adjusted sack rate. But that's going to help this offense enormously. On the defensive side of the ball, it's still a bad defense. But Gladney, their rookie corner, played well last week, which was really good to see. Ngakoue's starting to get up to speed to provide them some edge rush. Still a work in progress on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, these two teams played in December in Seattle on Sunday or Monday night in primetime with fans, and the line was Seattle -2.5. Now you're telling me this line is 7.5, which is what I got, and now it's 7. I still make it under 5. What has changed? I mean, the Vikings defense got worse. Maybe Russ is cooking a little more. He's been playing at an MVP level for years. The line should not have moved 5 points from what it was last year. And the Vikings offense, by the way, is better today than it was then. Adam Thielen didn't play in that game. Treadwell was the number 2 receiver. I'll take, Thielen and Jefferson right now and the offensive line playing better than Treadwell and Diggs. Regardless, the offense is about the same. The defense, it's downgraded, which is why I make this line, 4.5, 5, not 2.5. The Seahawks are just completely overvalued now. I know they're 4-0 against the spread, but this team is running like gods. And by the way, the Vikings have lost to teams that are all undefeated. They've had a much tougher schedule. The Seahawks they barely beat the Cowboys. That win looks worse by the day. They were even statistically with the Falcons. That looks worse by the day. And then the Dolphins, they give up a fluke play. Otherwise, that game could have went either way. at the end of the first half, and they weren't penalized. They were penalized 0 times in the whole game. First time in like 15 years the Seahawks weren't penalized. But there is so much regression coming for this team. It's insane. I mean, they've played 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL. We've been through that. But their red zone touchdown scoring percentage, it's about 90%. For reference, they were about 65% the past 2 years, 55% in 2017. No NFL team's ever finished over 80%. Now Seattle's actually going to have to face a competent red zone D. Zimmer's D will always be great in the red zone. There's a lot of variance in red zone Ds, not Minnesota. Top 5 again this year at like 40, 45% touchdown percentage. Last 3 years, top 5, 40, 45%. They've also had extreme turnover luck. I mean, extreme. Despite just a terrible defense, they rank second in takeaways, second in interceptions, and they're +5 turnover margin through 4 games. That's not sustainable. Now, Russell Wilson's not going to turn the ball over, and they're going to be around +10, +12 is what I project them at, but not over +1 per game on average. So, look, and then also the Vikings have some positive regression coming their way. They're -3, -4 in turnovers. They've been the unluckiest team in hidden yards, hidden points on special teams by about 4 or 5 points. That's things out of your control. Opponent field goals, opponent punts, opponent kickoffs. So, look, I'm throw out the narrative street. Russell Wilson's 22-9-3 against the spread at primetime. Cousins is 7-15 against the spread in primetime. I don't care. What is it, past Cousins' bedtime? Russell Wilson tries harder at night. I don't see it. Zimmer as a dog I can make cases for the Vikings here trend-wise as well. There's this the Seahawks are just overvalued. You look from a yards per play perspective, even though the Seahawks have had the much easier schedule, the Seahawks and the Vikings are both +0.4 net yards per play. They're both top 5 offenses in yards per play, and they're both bottom 5 defenses. So these teams are not that different. The Seahawks are 4-0 against the spread. I'm sure Russell Wilson will make some plays against the Vikings secondary, but I'm sure Minnesota will move the ball. Last year was 37-30. Seattle won in a shootout, and Minnesota turned the ball over 4 times in their own territory, including a turnover on downs. This game should go right down to the wire. And the kicker at the end of it, all I need to do for the most part is not have the Seahawks win by 2 possessions or more. They've done that 2 times in their last 18 victories over the past 3 seasons. Give me the Vikings, anything 7 or above.
Yeah, in that game that you just mentioned, the 37-30 game, Dalvin Cook got injured in that game as well, I believe. So
yeah, and Thielen didn't play.
Yeah, so Minnesota was down on offense. The total is sky high, 57.5. You kind of mentioned the trends. I'll just throw some out there. Fading teams on a roll, teams that have covered by an average of 5 points or more. If you fade those teams, you're 97, 52, and 4, 65% against the spread going back to 2003. You did mention Cousins. Always find it interesting. He is 12 and 25 against the spread outside of the 1 p.m. window, just period, not even prime time, but just anything that's not a 1 p.m., 32%. But here's one that's I've heard talked about.
They're usually not an over touchdown dog. Like I'm not expecting. I don't
right.
Even this game.
Here's one I wanted to touch on really quick, and maybe it kind of relates to the total, but wanted to get your thoughts on this. I've heard it talked about. I don't know quite what to make of it, but Minnesota's outdoors has struggled at times. They're 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 outdoors, including a 21-7 loss to Seattle, 37-30, as you mentioned, to Seattle. Is there anything to that, or is that just kind of variance with the Vikings?
No, I mean, based on the way that they play, I don't think that there's anything to that. They're a team. A lot of times you'll see like these outdoors or, travel stats. They're more related to weather than anything else. Minnesota, to me, it's not like they're the spread you out. We're going to downfield passing attack that would thrive indoors, in nice weather. They're a grind you out team, play action pass, tough defense. So I don't see anything to that. Maybe there is, and I'm not seeing it, but I actually have seen that stat, and I think it's more noise with Minnesota.
Speaking of noise, you mentioned Justin Jefferson, and shout out to him, because I remember when the draft took place, and I think we did a roundtable for ActionNetwork.com on just which guys had the best landing spots, and nobody was really too high on Justin Jefferson and his landing spot. And I remember pointing out, like, hey, you know, this team really doesn't have anything at receiver outside of Adam Thielen. Like, BC Johnson is replacement level. Irv Smith runs routes and doesn't get targeted. You know, Kyle Rudolph is a blocking tight end. So he is just monstrously coming on the scene. And you want to hear something crazy. You mentioned the yards per route run. Last season, the Vikings, despite, you know, their kind of run-heavy perception, and they are run-heavy, but they had the number 2 receiver in the league in yards per route run in Stephon Diggs at 2.69. And now in 2020, 4 weeks in, they have the number 1 receiver, Diggs' replacement, at 3.7 yards per route run, leading the league. So Minnesota is getting it done with, you know, with these, you know, guys complementing Thielen, and that does make their passing attack dangerous. Any thoughts on the total? It's 57.5. When you get to a certain number in those mid 50s, the total almost never goes under. Any thought to playing the under? I know Minnesota has the number 4 red zone defense and the number 2 third down defense, or do you expect a shootout?
Yeah, I mean, I can't play the under in this game, even though I think it's a tad high. But, I mean, and Seattle's a snail, but they could just score so easily. Minnesota's inexperienced corners. The Seattle defense is a mess. I expect Minnesota to score. The pace is up across the NFL. Communication's easier without fans. It's not just the penalties are down. I mean, look at Seattle last week. Didn't have a single penalty called on them all game. I can't bring myself to touch the under, even though I think it is a tad high. I'm still trying to get a feel and figure out totals here. But, yeah, I mean, Jefferson, his emergence is huge because – and now that they're doing play action and throwing more on first down, you know, you're going to have these teams – and they're going to face a similar defense this week to Houston. Single high safety, a lot of cover 3. And these teams are really anticipating the run. And Jefferson, you're going to have opportunities down the field on first down in particular. So his emergence is huge for that offense.
Yeah, and I would expect Minnesota to throw a ton because Seattle, the one probably, you know, bright spot for their defense thus far has been their run defense. It's been a lot better than their pass defense, which isn't really saying much, but they are number 6 in DVOA against the run, number 29 against the pass. So I think this is another aggressive game for Mike Zimmer, and they know that they aren't going to win, like, you know, 20-17 against Seattle. So, yeah, I would probably lean over, even though it's a high number.